I don't know if you saw this. Bruce Pritchard spoke recently about Eddie Guerrero because obviously 13th of November, which was a couple of weeks ago, marked his passing from WWE. It's 15 years since we've lost it.
Jesus.
I know, it's crazy. He actually mentioned, this is an excerpt from it. He was talking about the initial run Eddie Guerrero had before, of course, he sadly went off the rails the first time around. And a lot of people may remember that Eddie Guerrero was released from the company before triumphantly returning, and of course having that incredible moment at No Way Out and everything else that went with that in 2004, and eventually overcoming everything to become one of the most liked WWE champions in existence, frankly. But I just thought it was worth quickly touching upon. He spoke briefly about Guerrero pushing towards the main event right before he was released. While Guerrero won world titles and had show-stealing WrestleMania matches in WWE, his first run with the company left a lot to be desired. In November 2001, Guerrero was arrested for drunk driving and was released by WWE 3 days afterwards. There's always been rumblings of Guerrero being scheduled for a big match against Stone Cold Steve Austin at King of the Ring 2002. This is unfortunately what also kind of led to Austin, copping the needle as well, because obviously he would have been scheduled to face Eddie Guerrero. A lot of people might remember that Austin pretty much walked from the company after WrestleMania. Wrestled Scott Hall at WrestleMania. They didn't really know what they were doing with him. And actually, the King of the Ring qualifier was going to be him versus Brock Lesnar on Raw, which is insane when you think about it. Imagine a matchup of that level and that magnitude. I'm not saying that Austin was correct in what he did, and Austin has spoken frequently, actually, about the fact that it was one of the worst decisions he ever made. But ultimately, I actually do agree that, frankly, the fact that that match had no build and was just scheduled to be on Raw is very disappointing. And I imagine this was one of the repercussions from this scenario. But it actually says here, any potential plans were scrapped after Guerrero got his pink slip. Pritchard revealed the segments between Austin and Guerrero likely would have led to some sort of in-ring payoff, but the nature of those segments were a lot for Guerrero to handle personally. This kind of gives you an insight into WWE's issues. Well, they did do stuff on TV leading up to it, Pritchard said. We did the horrible barroom karaoke thing where Steve Austin sang and Eddie was there to heckle. That was a hell of an ordeal because of Eddie's addictions and everything. Eddie was uncomfortable being in the bar. Oh, shit. It was, look, Eddie, if you're either a performer or you're not. He got over it pretty quickly. I don't think that speaks well to Bruce Pritchard, frankly, and I think he needs to have a word of himself looking back at this. He said, I think we did it in Nashville. It was probably some of the worst TV that I ever did because I don't think Steve was really into it. I don't think Vince was really into it, and Eddie was a little apprehensive. Again, no dahoy. So it was an idea that Steve had that was only half thought out, and it was a situation where Vince really wanted to do it because Steve really wanted to do it. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done it because it just did not work. What do you think about that? Bruce Pritchard essentially admitting that, yeah, we kind of knew that Eddie Guerrero was going off the rails a bit, but we stuffed him in a bar anyway because apparently you're a professional.
I mean, I think Eddie's addiction issues are very well documented.
Yeah.
Like that's that's just like WWE mentality back then. They're like, they made storylines out of, Road Warrior Hawk, like his alcoholism. They made storylines and shit out of that. This wasn't above WWE in the early 2000s. I know Attitude Era, edgier shit. Wow, go. But like Eddie was having a really hard time. And you're like, we're going to stick him in a bar. That'll be fun. Good job, Pritchard, you fucking twat. But and in the end, Eddie, he went on the independents for a while. I'm pretty sure he wrestled like a up-and-coming CM Punk at like a Ring of Honor show at some point.
IWA Mid-South, actually. Yeah, they wrestled at...
that's fucking cool.
I think it was called Long Hot Summer. If you check out our Facebook page, you might have to do some scrolling, but the full match is actually available there. There's a triple threat between CM Punk, Rey Mysterio, and Eddie Guerrero from IWA Mid-South. Not bad at all. So yeah, check that out. So
yeah, that's incredible. And and it doesn't really matter because like that share at the top, but he came back, or late 2002, early 2003. The SmackDown 6, the run with Chavo, eventually leading up to that huge title win at No Way Out, which is the first time wrestling ever made me cry. I was so fucking happy. I was like 13 years old. I was a mark. I didn't know. I was like, fuck yeah, yeah. And then the second time was after he passed. That destroyed me because he was such a legend. He was such a character. He was such a performer. Definitely one of a kind. But fuck you, Bruce Pritchard. You're a son of a bitch, and I don't like you.
I mean, I've never been a huge fan of Bruce Pritchard. No denying Bruce Pritchard's level of input and expertise in wrestling. No question. I'd never question that. But, okay, the only reason I brought it up is because I feel like people have buried the lead a little bit on that. And the fact that I know that ultimately the buck drops with Vince McMahon. Okay. And ultimately it is Vince McMahon's decision. So of course he should cop the most abuse. But Bruce Pritchard just kind of casually mentioning it as if to say, oh yeah, whatever, it's okay now that he's passed on and we're all these years removed. I don't think that's okay. And I don't think it's okay when you must have, don't tell me that you didn't know, you must have at least some inkling that Eddie Guerrero is struggling, if not a full-blown obvious nature of what was happening. But I thought it was worth mentioning. It was also quite interesting the fact that we could have had Eddie Guerrero versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a prominent feud, even though it sounds to me like Austin had kind of shit the bed with the idea. I mean, Austin wanted to be in a bar. That's not really a surprise. The man knows his way around a few IPAs, let's just say that.
I don't even really like IPAs. I've tried a few IPAs, not a big fan, not my beer.
I'm more of a spirits man as I get older.
Yeah.
When I was back in my hooligan days and everything, I used to down shitloads of Kronenberg and get rowdy. But I just don't. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing it's okay to just like things for flavor and not just drink things because all the boys do. So yeah. Welcome to the Alcoholic Hour with Wrestle Plug, which I'm actually currently drinking some passion fruit and mango tiki rum. So it's whatever, drink what you like. If I can say to anyone who's young enough, like I know that there are certainly some impressionable wrestlers that watch this channel, aka Aaron Cruz and Cameron Anderson. Drink what you like. Do not be peer pressured into drinking something just because the rest of the boys are drinking. And by the way, you're not cool or clever being able to drink more beer than anyone else. Trust me, I know. Being down that route, it's not very clever.
But we both know Cam's a fuckboy. He's just going to do what he wants anyway.
He is.
We love you, buddy. We love you, but you're a bit of a fuckboy, and he knows it.
Fucking adore that kid. I adore that kid. He's like a little brother to me, as is Mr. Cruz. Although obviously Cameron is my first choice of tag team partner now because Cruz, bailed on me to tag with Ethan Lee, who is another twink. So, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not bitter.